Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, and very excited to introduce our guest for this morning. She's the March for Life propagandist. I love that. We're going to talk a little about pro-life stuff and her herself, Anna Lulis. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. I can't complain. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, nothing crazy going on.
Well, that's good.
But great. I'm happy to be here.
That's good. Nothing crazy is going on, but from what you do, and I've seen you, I mean, you're on Instagram, you're on X, formerly Twitter, and you're doing so much for the March for Life, organization. So maybe just kind of give us a brief rundown of what you do for March for Life.
Yeah, so I'm technically an independent pro-life activist, but I do digital work for them. So I've been in the pro-life movement for, oh my gosh, like 4 years at this point, I want to say, which doesn't sound like a long time, but for me, ever since graduating college, that's been my life. So it feels like a very long time. So I've been in all things digital, not just media, but I've done marketing in general. So everything you can think of when it comes to mass communications, I've probably done. My area of expertise is more in like the IT tech digital realm. So I naturally just gravitated towards that, and it led me to do more front facing things on digital media. But prior to my time at the March for Life, I was like crashing protests, and I live in the Washington, D.C. area. So there's a lot of fun stuff going on here. I'll just say a bunch of protests 24/7. So I've crashed the Women's March like 5 years in a row, I want to say. I've attended the March for Life. So I've done things on both sides of the spectrum where like I've stood for life in our nation's capital and in local communities. Like I'm born and raised in Virginia, so I always go to the Virginia March for Life. But on the opposite end, I've crashed Women's March and kind of exposed the reality of abortion in that area, and I've had a lot of dialogues with people who've thought differently than me. So yeah, I've been doing that for 4 years about, and I'm excited to see where that leads me and continuing on that path. But it's been a fun ride for sure.
No kidding. Yeah, and you mentioned nothing crazy happening today, but crashing some of those protests. I'm sure you're welcomed warmly into those protests.
Oh yeah, it's kind of my personality. I like to say I'm a social justice warrior, but Catholic, which is funny. So a lot of people, there aren't that many activists that are Catholic or conservative leaning. A lot of them are progressive, which I actually respect. I think we need more people who boldly proclaim the truth, no matter what that is. And I think it's fun. So when I go to these protests, a lot of people think I'm crazy for doing it, but I kind of love it. I think more people should do it just to have that dialogue with the opposite side, which I think is so lost within our society because everything's incredibly polarized. And it kind of humanizes them because a lot of people paint our Catholic beliefs as being fundamentally evil when it's not. And I think when they're able to encounter people who hold different views, even if they're crazy and they don't want to talk to you and maybe they just, scream, because that happens a lot too. I would say very unfortunately, I've had very few interactions where they actually want to have a dialogue with you, but sometimes it did happen. But I just think being there, being a presence, at least, even if you're not even able to have that, just talk with them about whatever social issue you're protesting, and for this it would be the life issue. It's just important to be there and have a presence and show people like we do exist. There are people out there who are pro-life who will confront you about the issue and boldly proclaim the truth, and that's something hopefully they're going to see more of in the future. So yeah, nothing crazy today, but I've enjoyed all of the protests I've crashed in the past.
Yeah, I just seen some of the videos you post on Instagram. It's like I'm taken aback. I'm like, wow, I can't believe she's clearly has no fear. Like, how would you say that your faith has helped to kind of inspire your Catholic faith? You're a devout Catholic. How has that helped you go through some of these crazy protests?
Oh my word. like so, in so many ways. I would say I just have the personality. I was agnostic for 19 years of my life. And then
Mm.
I had technically a reversion back to the Catholic faith, but I feel more like a convert, if anything. So I would say God uses people's personalities and how he designed them for his good. And I think when I was agnostic, I was a little progressive leaning. I was always pro life, though, because of the scientific proofs behind it.
Mm.
But I just had that personality of being a social justice warrior. And then I think right when I became Catholic, I was just like, well, now I have to do this for the pro life movement. And so I would just like go out and I don't know. I enjoy it. Like, I don't really have fear. I think it's more so I have in my mind, like, it's probably not the safest thing to do. Like, my parents don't necessarily like me going out there and they think I'm going to die every time, which, there are some people who get a little violent, but at the end of the day, I'm kind of just, I like I can die tomorrow. I could die at the protest. I could get
Mm.
injured in a car accident tomorrow. I could get injured in the protest. That shouldn't stop you from proclaiming the truth or doing God's work. So I think I
Mm.
just have that mindset with anything I do, and I just go for it. And whatever happens, kind of happens. And yeah, I don't know why. Maybe it's maybe it's not usual, but I enjoy it, and I don't really have that much fear when I go into it, which is a
Mm.
godsend.
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds like you've listened to God's will and you're doing exactly what he wants you to do. So that's incredible work you do. One of my favorite posts that I've seen, and there's many, you posted kind of a static image and there's 10 images afterwards that you can swipe through. And the first one is just words that says good reasons to abort. And then you swipe to the next page and it's blank. And you swipe to the next page, also blank. And then you keep, there's no good reason. It's just one of the many, like, you use humor as well, I think, and you do it really well to grab people's attention. And it's clear because you have so many people that are watching and commenting and liking and sharing all of your content. So kind of in that realm, whether it's online or offline, what was like kind of the most unexpected conversation? And you mentioned a little, sometimes you have dialogue, but what was something that really stood out to you that maybe was fruitful in a conversation with someone on the other side?
I think it's the lack of education. So, like, every time I'm able to actually educate somebody about the life issue, it is always the most effective. And it shows within studies that the more somebody is educated about the life issue or fetal development, for example, the more likely they are to be for restrictions on abortion.
Hmm.
So, there's just such a lack of education, and the dehumanization of the preborn has gone so far. Some people don't even know not anything about fetal development, but when human life even begins, it's all over the place. So if I were to ask 10 people in a room, when does human life begin? They would all give me a different answer, which, as we know, isn't true. Like, there has to be a definitive point of when human life begins, and it's scientifically proven at this point. So 96% of biologists from a study from the University of Chicago has shown that's predominantly consisted of progressive and atheist leaning professors have said and mutually agree that human life begins at fertilization. It's just a scientific fact. When I was agnostic, I even recognized that scientific fact, which is why I was pro life. I just didn't have the why I should even care about human life until I reverted back to my faith. So I think having those conversations and just behind the scientific proofs work a lot. Some people just say after that, like, you don't really care about the foster care system. People in poverty, they go on to an endless line of potential sufferings that one person may have. But due to our Catholic understanding, we know that nobody can avoid suffering in this lifetime. Everybody's going to have a different cross to bear. And, some people don't necessarily like hearing that. That being said, somebody's potential suffering doesn't automatically mean they're less human than you. And we
Hmm.
don't have a say over that person's life due to whatever potential sufferings that person may have. We can't say somebody's a better human or more worthy of life because they might have a better life here on earth. And who are we to judge that? Everybody's life is different. I know people in the foster care system, people who've been adopted, and they are very happy to be here. They have great lives, great families, and they've made something maybe that's unfortunate that happened in their life and turned it for something good. So I think having those conversations generally are a little effective or fruitful when I go out. But also like making it seem like you're normal to other people. Like you mentioned, I try to use comedy sometimes with like that post where it was just like, there are no good reasons to abort at all. And I think some people could see that and be like, oh, this girl's like, she's not just yelling at you on the street saying don't have an abortion or whatnot. Like I try to be as normal as possible with these people and make it seem like I'm not this weird idea you have in your head of pro-lifers. I can sit with you and talk and laugh about normal stuff and just really on a different level. And I think that's incredibly important to do within the pro-life movement with this cause. So I'm glad you noticed that on social media, but also on the ground, I try to implement that in my conversations as well.
Absolutely. I know we got a minute left here before we wrap up. Will you be joining us in the after show clubhouse?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So I have more questions for it, and it's a little bit more relaxed environment. And as a listener, you're welcome to join as well. It's going to be on YouTube and Facebook, so you can actually make comments and talk to us as well. But thank you so much, Anna. You're an incredible witness, like I said, doing God's work, making sure like you said, you're being a normal person out there. You're not like knee-jerk reaction, yelling and screaming at people. You're just trying to engage them and try to educate. I actually, that ultimately that's what the case is just pure education. Because, and I don't know if it's because we as Catholics have kind of just become the silent majority, if you will, but now we have to speak up. It's imperative, and you're a great example for some of us, including myself, to talk more about these issues with people, not just maybe not going to protests, but where conversations are actually at home. Maybe they're at the workplace. And it could be at our own parish for all we know. So thank you so much. We can find you at annalulis.com, and that's Anna, Lulis.com, as well as your social media, Anna Lulis. Lulis, my goodness, it's a good morning, Monday morning. Anyways, if you're going to be listening to Mass right after this, please pray for us, and we'll see you tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll see you on our after show clubhouse. Have a blessed day.
This has been Morning Joy, where truth matters, hosted by Keith Downey. Take some joy with you today. Visit grnonline.com/joy to listen again, share a segment, or answer the question of the day. That's grnonline.com/joy.